Office Hours webinar. It's produced on behalf of the 6th Digital Media and Learning Competition, which is administered by Haystack with the support from the MacArthur Foundation. I'm Cheryl Grant. I'm Director of Social Networking for the DML competition, and I will be your moderator for the next 25 minutes or so. If we do have a lot of people sent in questions in advance. If we go through those fairly quickly, we may not necessarily go through the last minutes of the remaining 30 for our office hours. So for those of you who are listening, if you even have just the tiniest inkling that you have a question, now would be the time to share that in the chat with Mandy, and she'll put it in front of me and I can ask our guests. Before I introduce those guests, I want to let you know how you can participate. So ask your questions in the chat using the chat window, and we'll do our best to fit them in today. Please note that we cannot provide specific feedback on individual proposals and process. I know that would be amazing if we could do that, if we could tell you if we thought your proposal was awesome. We cannot do that, but we'll be available to answer general questions about playlists and playlist design and the competition application process, the terms and conditions, and whatnot. And then for those of you who think of questions after today, we do have a second office hour scheduled for May 5th, which I believe is a Thursday at 1:30 Eastern Time. And that will be another office hours if you have questions that you want answered. And that will be, I believe, a week from that Friday, May 13th is the deadline. The deadline is 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on May 13th for getting your applications in. So with that out of the way, let me introduce our guests today. We have Jen Humke, who is Senior Program Officer at the MacArthur Foundation, David Theo Goldberg, who is Director of UCHRI and the DML Research Hub and the DML Competition and co-founder of Haystack, and Tim Cook, who's Partner Product Manager at LRNG, who's right in the thick of playlist design right now as we are doing this office hours, and Gurley Dela Cruz, who's Senior Research Associate at LRNG. Hello, everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in. I think I'm not always sure when I ask these questions who they should go to, but I'll do my best to point them, and feel free, any of you, if you have something to add to the answers as we go through them. Well, we have one here right at the top. This one is probably a good one for Tim. Are there meta badges? That would be a badge that comes after other badges are assembled.
Yeah, so Mark, I think you're familiar with the City of Learning platform and some of the badging work in the past. On the new LRNG platform, there are not meta badges in the sense that you're talking about, but there is sort of this new idea of the learning XP, or the experience, and multiple XPs, right? Multiple experiences accumulating to earn one badge. So in a sense, no, there are not meta badges, but the badges that there are more meta than they were in the past. Really having badges be sort of the substantive achievement that is unlocked by the learner doing multiple things, completing potentially multiple experiences to lead up to the badge. So they do have a meta nature to them, and they are designed to be the accumulation of multiple experiences. But you cannot, at this time, stack multiple badges into a larger framework. But it is something we'll consider for the future.
And for those of you who have been joining us on other webinars, we had a really good one with Gurley and Tim about badges. I mentioned this a couple of times, that just to be clear, there's a distinction between what you can do with badges more generally, and then what badges can be, how you can do them with LRNG. And then the competition, it is required that you do put your playlist on the LRNG platform. However, you can submit your proposal with criteria that goes a little bit beyond what LRNG has the capacity for. So just want to make that distinction for those of you, that when you're applying to the competition, be sure to read the criteria really carefully, and let that be guiding you in terms of how you design. Just want to make that distinction. So great, thank you, Tim. Had a little, and does anyone want to add anything to that? I think that Tim might be our badge guru here, so everyone's nodding. Okay, the next one is also about badges. So Tim, why don't we just move right into this, and you can pick up where you left off. This question is saying, I have a number of digital badges and a number of playlists. Should the proposal focus on one and mention the others, or attack all of them within the proposal and grant application? And as I read that more carefully, I realized it's probably a good question for David. And David, if you need me to read that again, please let me know. And David, you may need to unmute yourself. There we go. David, are you there? I see that you are unmuted, but we're not hearing any audio from you. Okay. Still not hearing from David. David, you may need to rejoin. I wonder if there's a glitch somewhere in, there we go. Okay, it looks like he's gonna join us again. And we'll come back to this question. So with David not on the call for moments, I'm sure he'll come back in. Let's see, here's one for LRNG. This is from Maya. I am wondering how live events will get represented in the LRNG platform, and in order to plan for live events, on what timeline projects will be expected to publish an LRNG playlist. And maybe we can do this sort of double-barreled. We can have LRNG answer and then David when he rejoins. Unless you're there, David? I think the webinar gremlins have David. We can see you there. We can see your audio is unmuted and we can't hear you. Okay. Tim or Gurley, do you want to answer the question about how maybe other people are dealing with live events?
Yeah, so on the platform we have a number of types of content. The three primary types are XPs, badges, and playlists, right? And so a playlist is stitching together a number of XPs, experiences, and those experiences can either be local, that have a time or a place, or they could be digital. In terms of the competition, I feel like I'm not exactly sure on what the timeline should be, but I know that local XPs have been published by providers in two different ways. Some of them are published so that they have a time and a place that's very specific and might pass and expire. Other people have published local XPs as sort of the idea of an ongoing event that happens on a recurring basis, right? So similar to the way a college publishes a course catalog, in that, you know, yes, there is a course this spring, but it's a course that persists throughout every semester. So when publishing local XPs, when publishing events, you can publish sort of the idea of the event, or you can publish the specific time and date version. Would depend with your publishing timeline and the parameters there.
Thanks, Tim. I'm going to take a moment. This is Demos at Haystack to just see if David can try to unmute from his phone or PC, because we have him unmuted in the system. I just want to make sure we try all the options.
I'm on now.
There you are.
There we are.
Good job.
It makes it so much more meaningful when you have to work hard for it. Nice to see you, David. I'll repeat the question. We just had Tim answer one, and I'll just repeat that same question in case you want to add some from the competition perspective. Maya asked, I'm wondering how live events will get represented in the LRNG platform, and in order to plan for live events, and what timeline projects will be expected to publish an LRNG playlist.
I mean, the timeline is within 9 months of the receipt of the award, should one be awarded. So the period of the grant is for 9 months from the time the contract is signed on both sides. And yeah, that's the development time, and at the very latest, by the end of that period, we would expect the playlist to be published, if not within the 9 month period. So as you develop, no later than the end of the grant period. As for live events, you know, that would be built into the proposal. Really, you'd have to make a case for that if funding from the grant were to support that live event in particular. and how they would be represented on the LRNG platform is something for LRNG, I think, to respond to.
And it seems like this also goes to some comments that both Gurley and Tim made in past office hours, and you, David, as well, about co-designing. If the event is in some way connected to co-designing, that will probably influence when you add it.
Yeah, it obviously has to be directly relevant and indicate in the proposal, why the live event is important and what it's leading to in terms of the development.
Great. I hope, Maya, that answered your question. And if not, please let us know in the chat or email as a follow-up. To go back to this one question we asked, David, we thought we had you online. Just to circle back to it, the question is, I have a number of digital badges and a number of playlists. Should the proposal focus on one and mention the others, or attack all of them within the proposal and grant application?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit difficult to know that in the abstract. I mean, obviously, the more quality playlists, the better, one could say, as a general rule. On the other side of that coin, you obviously want to consider that whatever playlists you're proposing and badges pertaining to those playlists should have a quality that you feel comfortable representing your sort of both you and your institution in your proposal, so that if you feel that some of the proposed playlists are less compelling than others, that would be a consideration, maybe just to mention them rather than to incorporate them as central to the. I mean, that's just good grant writing.
Yeah, we just want to also mention that certainly if you are talking about a playlist system, that is most welcome, if that's how you're envisioning your playlist, to send it in as a system. The next question is Donna at Guru. Is there a way to explore the LRNG platform to test it out and see how they might adapt their playlists to LRNG?
Yeah, so you can even go right now to a number of the landing pages for some of our city partners and see some of the content that they've published. I think there are 1 or 2 national playlists that are already published. There's one that's built in partnership with the Gap. So if you head to lrng.org/youth, you'll see sort of the youth landing page. And you can check out some content there, or you could go to any of the city partner pages as well. But yeah, if you want to see a playlist, go to lrng.org/youth, and you can scroll down, and there's one playlist called The Business. And I'll put the link in the chat if you'd like to check it out.
Great. Thank you, Don. I hope that answers your question. And again, I mentioned earlier, if you do have other questions between office hours, you can go to the dmlcompetition.net site, and there's a link to contact, and that contact box will come to our email boxes where you can get answered directly, or wait until the next office hours.
Can I just go back to the point about a system of playlists? I mean, if you are thinking of proposing or developing a system of playlists, one of the considerations you want to give some thought to is how the otherwise discrete playlists would be integrated with each other, and how how the system would work as a whole together in order to make for a compelling proposal.
Thank you, David, for that clarification. This next question is from Marcia. It's regarding the proposal. The first section is going to be public. And the question is, should it be written as ad or catalog copy to engage young people? Or I guess the question really is, who is the reader of that public section? David, this is probably a little bit for you, but I know that this is the text that gets posted to the DML competition website. And this is what explains the playlist to the general public. So would you agree, David, this is not necessarily copy that's going to be oriented toward a youth audience?
Yeah, I mean that's likely. I mean, obviously, were you awarded, we would work with you as to what that copy, how that copy would best read, and the audience would be for largely practitioners and other interested people that to sort of as a hook to pull them in, and is unlikely to be read or less likely to be read by youth. I think that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So, if I'm understanding the question correctly, and David, your answer, there's really two parts. There's writing it for your application, and then if you become funded, this is
Yeah.
typically the section that we put on our website and in our ad copy for
Right.
people to understand. So it's got a little bit of dual purposes there, but definitely.
Right, and that would work as a kind of abstract almost for what you're doing. And if we get to that point, we work very closely, as we have in past competitions, with awardees in order to figure out what both what the best title is. I mean, we sometimes ask people to foreshorten their titles or get a snappier title or something a bit more representative of what they're doing for a broad audience. So copywriting, basically, right? And we would work closely and obviously take into consideration the driving concerns and interests of the person making the proposal.
Great, thank you. I hope, Marsha, I hope that answered your question. The next one that we have is from Rick. His question is about the LRNG platform, since that is required for the proposal that your playlists are compatible with the platform. Rick's organization is building a system for school districts and universities to do open badging. So the question is, how do they connect to LRNG's system? Is the LRNG open badge compatible, and what are the technical requirements?
So that depends on the full scope of the question. The brief answer is that anyone who wants to use the platform just needs to have an account. There are two types of accounts. You can have a network level account, which is used by like cities or districts to manage a lot of kind of subsidiary partners. And then there are the individual organization or program level accounts. Within the LRNG account, you can use the content manager and builder tools to create XPs, both digital and local, to create badges and to create playlists. So all the content can be authored on the platform, drafted, sort of played with, and then published out live on the web, either published on the sort of national feed or potentially on some local feeds within some of the partner cities. The second part of that question, I think, was around open badges. All of the badges on the LNG platform will be open badges aligned and compatible with the data standard, so they can be imported and exported to other open badge platforms.
Great, thanks, Tim. I guess there is a related question. I think I've heard you answer this before. Can you port content into LRNG, or does it all have to be rebuilt using the LRNG content manager tools?
Yeah, so the content types that we have are pretty basic, but because, especially this idea of the playlist, which is the main sort of content type here, there are not really that many similar models or platforms that are publishing content as playlists, and there's definitely not a standard like metadata specification across a number of platforms in the way that Open Badges is working towards. So if you create a custom metadata spec that we could align to, then maybe we could have compatibility across multiple platforms. But yeah, so the playlist content would have to be inputted custom for each piece of content. But it is, I mean, a pretty basic format. So each thing is just an experience within the playlist. And then oftentimes a lot of the partners that we work with sort of do the development offline anyways, and then they just sort of copy paste text and upload a couple images into the builders. So it's not a very timely process. It takes 1 or 2 minutes usually to drag and drop or copy paste content into the builders.
Great, thank you, Tim. I think I have a question for Gurley. So this one says, is it assumed that the entities which are awarded the DML grants will be responsible for assessing the digital portfolios of all youth who elect to participate in the experiences and playlists offered to earn a badge, and that the experiences and playlists will live on the LRNG platform for a minimum of 18 months? Oh, we can't hear you. We finally have a question for you and something in the audio there. Still no. Oh no. Do you want to come back and join back in? Okay, we'll save that question for when you come back in. So let's work on the question ahead of that. The basis of this question is resolving around if this participant, potential proposal applicant through their university, working with secondary teachers in surrounding counties with the grant award. Wait, I think this English is requiring some deciphering here. I think the question is, can they, sorry, it keeps jumping around here. I'm guessing it's, can you work through a university, work with secondary teachers in surrounding counties to develop educational playlists for them to take back to their institutions for use and implementation? So if I'm understanding the question correctly, it's, can you design the playlist for these teachers to use in their institutions? So this seems to be getting at collaboration. David, this might be a good question for you.
Yeah, I mean, if I understand the question as intended, absolutely, there would be no restriction on doing that, other than getting the teachers and learning institutions for whom you're purporting to develop the badge and the playlist, from making sure that they're open to the engagement, so it's a true collaboration. Sorry.
Yes, collaboration is encouraged. Know that, and it's probably a good idea to make sure you have that buy-in before you start the grant, since it will be a 9-month period.
Well, I think even, as you're developing the proposal, you want to be sure that they are bought in, and that there's some incentive for them to be engaged. Proper collaboration is collaboration that has a kind of equal input from all those, both developing and impacted by the project.
Okay, thank you, David.
Cheryl, it looks like we have Gurley back now, if you want to jump to the prior question.
All right, Gurley, do you want me to repeat the question, or do you want to jump in?
I think I can jump in. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay, perfect. Yes, you will. From a competition perspective, I'm assuming yes. The answer is yes. You will be responsible. At LRNG, our partner organizations are responsible for assessing their own content. We at LRNG assess our national playlists. But yes, there is a place and there is a process where we guide you to create what we call capstone XPs at the end of your playlist that will lead to earning the badges. So that might be something you might want to specify in your proposal. Of course, I'll defer to David and the rest of you in terms of the competition, but I think that would be something important to lay out just in terms of your theory of action.
Mm-hmm.
So David, would you say it's a recommended idea to have an assessment plan somewhere in the proposal?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, increasingly assessment is part of our both learning environment and operating environment. And so if you have something judicious and compelling to offer, I think it would be wise to do.
And I could note here that the assessment plan could be something that you scale up and you do the assessment sort of for the playlist that you're creating internally, or it could be as simple as you're creating a national piece of content that you're allowing, local organizations around the country to use, and those local organizations would be responsible sort of individually for the assessment if they're using your playlist in their local level within their local program. So there's like, I think probably multiple different ways to scale and think about that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, you could also, as a sort of hybrid of that, sort of think about whether there's a crowdsourcing component to the assessment. So, if anybody using it, can in the end, a kind of public-facing sort of way, assess what the learning experience has been by the use of that playlist or system of playlists and so on.
I was going to. I did want to add that the rigor of your assessment will also vary, of course, depending upon your criteria and the requirements you're specifying. It could be something as simple as just giving them credit for completing it, or it could be something a lot more stringent with specified detailed criteria and rubrics. But of course, I'm guessing that's going to be up to your context and your purposes.
Great, thank you, Girly. This is a short question. This is for David. Is it okay that this potential applicant is assisting on 2 different entries? They don't want it to look funny to the judges since I guess both will be similarly worded. They work with both organizations on game design projects.
So if I'm understanding it, there will be 2 discrete proposals, and the person asking the question would be at least a collaborator on both. That would be fine. You can only be the PI on one, but there would be no problem with your being engaged with others on multiple proposals.
Great, thank you, David.
The proposal should look different. They should not be the same. You could. I mean, if we see that there are, for example, different PIs on what amounts to pretty much the same proposal, we will discount both proposals. I mean, they really need to be different proposals.
All right, this next question is about the 18-month period of membership with the LRNG platform. So the winning content modules live on the LRNG platform for 18 months, and after that 18 months, the owners can opt to have it remain on the platform for a to be determined fee. I guess this is to be clarified by Tim. After the 18-month content, after the 18 months, do owners have to pay a fee, or is it removed from the platform?
Yeah, so you get a free account for 18 months. But assuming the content is good and stays relevant after that period, it would continue on the platform indefinitely until, an arranged time that was mutually agreed upon to take it off because it wasn't good or relevant at some point in the future. So the content would not be taken off of the platform. You just would not have an account to use in which you could create more content. So having the account is kind of an added benefit and an award as part of the competition. You don't need an account per se to participate in the competition and publish like 1, 2, 3 playlists. But by having an account, you can not only publish your playlist as part of the competition, but you could also use that account for other purposes as well, to publish other content, to do other programming, other badges as part of your organization program. So having the account is sort of an added benefit. But at the end of the 18 months period, the account benefit goes away, but your content will not. Your content will stay on the platform under a national account that we control, and we'll give you access to that account if and when you need to make edits or updates to the content that was part of the competition.
Thank you, Tim, because that last bit that you said had to do with the second part of this question. So I'll read it just in case there's some nuances I missed. But if LRNG opts to retain it, who maintains it? It sounds like you can give them access to make edits. And the rest of the question is, if a module is structured to have fresh content dynamically added, if the module remains on the platform after the 18 months, will LRNG assume the maintenance? And who maintains the assessment of the work uploaded?
Yeah, so it'd probably be on a case-by-case basis. We can talk about that when the time comes in 2 years from now. But yeah, I think anyone who needs access to content to continue to update it, and it becomes part of like the national portfolio and it's being used a lot and shared a lot, we'll definitely make sure you have access to keep updating those consistently changing modules or parts of the playlist, XPs within the playlist as necessary.
Great. We are at 12:30 Eastern time here, so that half hour went by very quickly. We have another one coming up on May 5th at 1:30 Eastern time. And don't forget that you can also ask your questions to the DMLcompetition.net contact box. That's on the front page. You'll see a navigation item for contact. And if you fill in that form, it goes to a secret inbox, and we can get back to you that way. Or we'll probably ask your questions also in the next office hours if you want to attend. So this wraps it up, our Playlist for Learning office hours number 2. If you want to follow the most updated information that we have, announcements, archived recordings, follow the DML playlist hashtag on Twitter. And so thank you to Jen Humke and David Theo Goldberg, to Gurley Dela Cruz and Tim Cook. We'll be hosting this additional webinar in the next week or so, and good luck to everybody as you prepare your applications. And again, the deadline for the competition is May 13th at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.